Hello there, and welcome to Before the Modern Age, where the past becomes a lantern, and mystery guides us gently towards sleep. When most people imagine the Ice Age, they think of mammoths marching across frozen plains, or saber-toothed cats flashing their fangs in the snow. These are the icons of a vanished world, strange, majestic, and larger than life. But here's the quiet truth: behind the bones are fragments of story, fragments that blur into myth, fragments that invite us to dream. The cave paintings at Chauvet show lions that no longer roam. The tar pits of La Brea hold the skeletons of predators drawn to their own doom. The frozen tundras of Siberia still yield the bodies of mammoths, their hair and flesh preserved as though they only just lay down to rest. Each discovery is more than science. It is memory, suspended in time, waiting for us to listen. So tonight, we step back into the world before the modern age, into winters that never ended, plains alive with giants, and caves where firelight flickered on walls of art. This is not just the story of what lived and what died. It is the story of endurance, of fragility, and of the mysteries that linger in silence. If the Ice Age has a symbol, it is the mammoth. Tall as an elephant, wrapped in shaggy coats of brown and black, tusks curving like crescents of ivory, they moved in herds across the steppe. They were not monsters, but grazers. Patient feeders of grass, flowers, and shrubs, turning frozen plains into pastures. Their bodies were masterpieces of survival. Thick fur for insulation. Underneath, layers of fat, up to 10 centimeters deep, stored warmth against the cold. Their ears and tails were short, conserving heat, unlike the long, thin ears of elephants today. Even their blood was adapted, able to carry oxygen at low temperatures. Nature had shaped them into walking fortresses against the cold. Yet for all their size, they lived as social beings. Fossils and frozen remains suggest they traveled in family groups, led by matriarchs, much like elephants now. Calves sheltered between mothers and aunts, tusks clashed in rivalry between males, herds crossed rivers and plains together. To see them alive would have been to see a family moving across snow, heavy, warm, enduring. Some we know almost as individuals. In the Siberian permafrost, entire mammoths have been found preserved, flesh and fur intact. The baby mammoth Luba, discovered in 2007, still carried milk in her stomach when she died 40,000 years ago. Her body lay frozen for millennia, a child preserved in ice, whispering of her herd's vanished world. But mammoths were not only animals. To humans, they were lifelines. Hunters followed their trails, seeking meat, fat, and hides. Tusks became tools, shelters, carvings. In Ukraine and Russia, the remains of mammoth-bone huts still stand, built by hands that relied on giants for survival. And in art, mammoths were drawn on cave walls, their forms lit by firelight, symbols of awe and dependence. Their story does not end in the Ice Age. On Wrangel Island, north of Siberia, a small population survived long after the glaciers retreated. While pyramids rose in Egypt, mammoths still walked the tundra. Only 4,000 years ago did they finally vanish, the last echoes of the Ice Age carried into human memory. But even now, in bones and ivory, in carvings and myths, they remain with us. Symbols of a time when the world was colder, and when survival meant walking among giants. And where mammoths walked, humans followed. Small in number, fragile in body, yet armed with fire, stone, and patience. To hunt a mammoth was to risk death, yet it also meant life for a whole band. And just as humans hunted, they were hunted in return. For in the Ice Age, the steppe was not only a pasture of grazers. It was also a theater of predators. Lions larger than any alive today, bears towering over men, cats with fangs like daggers. The Ice Age was a test. For beasts, for humans, for every living thing. To live was to adapt. To survive was to stand between hunger and cold, between fog and ice. And so, as we step deeper into this frozen world, we meet not only the prey, but also the hunters. When most people think of Ice Age giants, their minds go first to mammoths, with their curling tusks and shaggy coats. But alongside them walked another giant, one less familiar yet equally important, the mastodon. Though they looked like mammoths at a distance, mastodons were something different. Forest dwellers, leaf eaters, shaped by a world of trees rather than grass. Their story is quieter, shaded in green rather than white, but no less powerful. Mastodons belong to the genus Mammoth, distant cousins of elephants and mammoths. They first appeared more than 3 million years ago, and for millions of years, they thrived across North America. From Alaska to Mexico, from the Great Lakes to the Gulf Coast, mastodons wandered in vast numbers. Their bones lie in bogs, river valleys, and caves, reminders of how common they once were. Their bodies were massive but compact. A male stood up to 3 meters tall at the shoulder and weighed 5 or 6 tons, smaller than the woolly mammoth, but still a towering presence in the forests. Unlike mammoths, whose backs sloped steeply downward, mastodons had straighter spines and shorter legs, giving them a stockier, heavier look. Their coats were shaggy, their ears short, their tails stubby, all adaptations to cold climates. But the real key to their difference lay in their teeth. Mammoths carried flat, ridged molars, ideal for grinding tough steppe grasses. Mastodons carried molars covered in cone-shaped cusps, like giant versions of human molars. These were made for chewing twigs, bark, fruits, and leaves. The very name mastodon means breast tooth, given by early scientists who noticed the nipple-shaped crowns of their molars. Their diet was not the endless grasses of open plains, but the variety of forests and wetlands. Paleobotanical studies of their stomach contents and dung confirmed this picture. Frozen remains from Indiana, Ohio, and Alaska have revealed partially digested conifer twigs, swamp plants, and even fruits. Mastodons were browsers, reaching into shrubs, stripping bark with their tusks, pulling down saplings, reshaping woodlands just as elephants shape savannas today. Their tusks were long, often straighter than those of mammoths, sometimes curving outward in wide arcs. Males in particular grew tusks that stretched over 3 meters, weapons and tools both. With them, they could dig for roots in frozen ground, strip bark from trees, or clash in combat. Fossils reveal tusks scarred with wear marks, evidence of repeated use, perhaps from jousting with rivals during mating seasons. They lived in herds, though perhaps smaller than mammoth groups. A mastodon herd might consist of a matriarch, her daughters, and their calves, with males living solitary lives or joining loosely during certain times of year. This social structure echoes elephants, their living cousins, and suggests deep continuity across millions of years of proboscidean evolution. For humans, mastodons were both a resource and a challenge. Archaeological sites show evidence of mastodon hunts. The famous Manus site in Washington preserved a mastodon rib with a spear point embedded in it, a bone and stone locked together for 13,800 years. Other sites across the Great Lakes region contain mastodon bones associated with stone tools, signs of butchering, marrow extraction, and meat processing. To hunt a mastodon was no small task. Imagine approaching a 6-ton beast, tusks sweeping, trunk raised in alarm. Spears could wound it, slow it, but the risk was enormous. One charge could shatter bones, scatter hunters, and lives. And yet, the reward was equally vast. One mastodon could feed a community for weeks. Its hide became shelter. Its bones became tools. Its tusks became weapons, carvings, even frameworks for dwellings. But mastodons were not only hunted by humans. They shared their forests with predators like dire wolves, American lions, and short-faced bears. Calves were vulnerable, just as elephant calves are today. Fossils sometimes show tooth marks from predators, reminders that even giants lived in fear when young. Climate, too, pressed against them. As the Ice Age ended, forests shrank and wetlands dried. Grasslands expanded, but mastodons were poorly adapted to them. Mammoths thrived on open steppes, but mastodons clung to woodlands that dwindled year by year. The twin pressures of human hunting and shrinking habitat may have pushed them to the edge. By 11,000 years ago, mastodons were gone, their last herds vanishing as the ice retreated. And yet, their memory endured. Indigenous peoples across North America told stories of giant beasts whose bones emerged from the earth. Some saw them as monsters destroyed by lightning, others as ancient spirits. When European settlers first uncovered mastodon bones, they were puzzled, imagining them as remains of biblical giants or creatures lost in Noah's flood. It was only in the 18th century that science began to piece their identity together, not giants of myth, but giants of nature, once real and alive. To imagine mastodons is to picture forests alive with movement. Herds pushing through swamps, trunks pulling at branches, tusks stripping bark. Calves splashing in rivers, mothers circling to protect them. The air filled with the scent of pine and spruce, the sound of cracking wood as giants fed. A world quieter than the mammoth steppe, but no less alive. Their extinction reminds us of fragility. For millions of years, mastodons thrived. In the end, it took only a few centuries of warming and hunting to erase them. Their absence left forests emptier, rivers quieter, ecosystems changed. Where once tusks parted branches, silence grew. But in their bones, their teeth, their preserved dung, they still speak. They remind us that giants walked not only the open plains, but also the hidden woods. That survival was not just a matter of size, but of adaptation. And that even the most enduring of creatures can vanish, leaving only shadows among trees. The mastodon's forests were places of browsing, of trunks and tusks stripping bark in silence. But silence could be broken. For predators walked those same woods, and on the plains beyond, hunters far more dangerous waited. If the mastodon fed slowly, patiently, the saber-toothed cat killed swiftly, violently. From the giants of the forest, we step into the realm of the hunters, and into the shadow of fangs longer than daggers. Few creatures from the Ice Age capture the imagination like Smilodon. Its very name carries a weight of menace, conjuring images of fangs long as knives, jaws opening wider than any modern cat, eyes glinting in firelight. To stand before one alive would not have been to see a lion or a tiger, but something stranger, heavier, and more specialized, a predator that hunted in ways we can scarcely imagine. Smilodon was not the lithe, chasing cat that modern lions or leopards represent. Its body was stocky, with barrel-shaped chest, immensely strong shoulders, and forelimbs thick with muscle. Its bones show attachments for muscles far larger than those of any living cat, suggesting immense pulling power. Its build was closer to a wrestler's than a sprinter's, designed to grapple prey to the ground rather than chase it over long distances. Its skull was wide, its jaws opening in an arc of more than 100 degrees, far greater than any modern feline. Within that gape lay its defining feature, saber teeth. Curved upper canines reaching up to 20 centimeters in length, serrated at the edges, sharp enough to pierce thick hide and sever arteries. Yet they were paradoxical weapons. Long, elegant, and deadly sharp, but also fragile. The sabers could not withstand the crushing forces that lions use when clamping down on bones. They were surgical tools, not hammers. To use them, Smilodon had to pin prey with its forelimbs, hold it still, and deliver a precise bite to the throat or belly, opening blood vessels in a single devastating motion. A specialist hunter, powerful, but risky. Who were its victims? The Ice Age steppe and forest were filled with giants. Bison roamed in herds. Horses ran across plains. Camels, native to North America before spreading elsewhere, browsed in groups. Young mammoths and mastodons strayed at the edges of herds. Any of these could fall to Smilodon, though never easily. Modern lions hunt with speed and teamwork, leopards with stealth. Smilodon, by contrast, was an ambush predator. It likely lay in wait near waterholes, tree lines, or narrow passages, striking when prey drew close. Its powerful forelimbs could have dragged victims off balance, pulling them into a grapple where the saber fangs could strike. The risk was immense. A misstep could snap a saber or leave the cat vulnerable to trampling. But fossils suggest it succeeded often enough to thrive. The La Brea tar pits in California, a natural asphalt trap that lured animals over thousands of years, hold hundreds of Smilodon skeletons. They are the most common predator in those deposits, suggesting a population dense and successful, feeding on the carcasses of trapped prey. One of the great debates is whether Smilodon hunted alone or in groups. Lions today form prides, while most other big cats are solitary. Which model fits Smilodon? The evidence tilts towards sociality. Many fossils show healed injuries, broken bones, crushed pelvises, even spinal damage that would have left individuals unable to hunt alone for weeks or months. Yet they survived. The implication is that others fed them, protected them, cared for them, a level of cooperation rare among predators. If true, Smilodon may have lived in prides, using teamwork to bring down giants, defending carcasses from bears and lions. Such cooperation would have made them formidable not only to prey, but to humans. To face one saber-toothed cat was terrifying. To face a coordinated group would have been nearly hopeless. For Ice Age humans, Smilodon was both rival and nightmare. Imagine a band of hunters approaching a bison carcass, only to find a pride of saber-toothed cats already feeding. Their fangs glisten with blood, their shoulders tense, their eyes fixed. To contest with them was to risk annihilation. Many times, humans would have backed away, ceding the kill. But there were also victories. Spears and coordinated hunting strategies gave humans tools no cat could match. Bones of Smilodon found near human settlements suggest occasional clashes. Perhaps a cat killed in defense, or hunted deliberately when it threatened. In the minds of Ice Age peoples, the saber-tooth must have loomed large, an embodiment of the danger that lurked in shadows, a predator so strange it seemed almost supernatural. Yet specialization carries danger. When prey herds declined at the end of the Ice Age, when bison populations shrank and mammoths disappeared, Smilodon's hunting style became a burden. It could not easily shift to smaller prey. Deer and antelope were too quick, too small to justify the risk of using sabers. Unlike more adaptable predators, Smilodon could not bend. And so it broke. By about 10,000 years ago, the saber-toothed cats were gone. Climate change, human expansion, and the loss of megafauna prey ended their reign. Their fangs, once the pinnacle of precision, became useless in a world of scarcity. And yet, their form endures in imagination. The long canines of clouded leopards, the ambush style of jaguars, the social behavior of lions, all echo parts of Smilodon. But none combined them all. It was a singular experiment, a predator unlike any before or since. Its bones tell us of power. Its fangs tell us of risk. Its healed injuries tell us of care. Its extinction tells us of fragility. To picture Smilodon alive is to see a predator crouched low in tall grass, shoulders rolling with muscle, sabers glinting in dim light. To hear it growl would have been to feel the hair on your neck rise. To face it in the dark was to know that even humans, with fire and stone, were not always the top of the food chain. But Smilodon was not the only cat of the Ice Age. On the open plains roamed another, larger, heavier, without sabers but with strength enough to rival any lion on earth. Where Smilodon was a specialist, this was a generalist, a hunter of herds, a king of grasslands. We leave the shadows of the saber-tooth and step into the open, into the domain of the American lion, the mightiest cat that ever lived. If the saber-toothed cat was the surgeon of the Ice Age, precise and specialized, then the American lion was its monarch, vast, adaptable, and unmatched in size. Known to science as Panthera atrox, this predator strode across the plains of North America for hundreds of thousands of years, casting a shadow larger than any living lion today. To meet it on the open ground was to face the king of Pleistocene hunters. At its peak, Panthera atrox reached lengths of over 3.5 meters from nose to tail, with males weighing up to 350 kilograms or more. That is almost half again the size of the largest African lions today. Standing shoulder to shoulder with a human, its back would have risen chest high. Its skull was long and deep, its teeth massive, its claws curved and sharp as blades. For decades, debate raged about whether Panthera atrox was truly a lion, a relative of jaguars, or a species of its own. Genetic studies now suggest it was close kin to modern lions, branching from their lineage some 340,000 years ago. But if it was a lion, it was a lion transformed, larger, more robust, shaped by a world of megafauna. The American lion roamed a vast territory. Its fossils have been found from Alaska to Peru, spanning tundra, grassland, and desert. Few predators in history have occupied such a range. In Ice Age North America, it was the apex hunter, standing above wolves, bears, and even saber-toothed cats in size. Its preferred prey likely included bison, horses, camels, and deer, abundant on the plains. But its power meant it could also threaten young mammoths, mastodons, and even giant ground sloths if opportunity arose. It was a hunter of herds, a ruler of open country, where speed and strength decided life and death. Was Panthera atrox solitary, or did it hunt in groups like lions today? The answer is uncertain. Fossils from the La Brea tar pits show multiple individuals trapped together, suggesting some degree of social behavior. Yet other evidence points towards solitary hunting, more like tigers. Perhaps, like modern big cats, it was flexible, sometimes alone, sometimes with kin. Its size meant it was capable of short bursts of explosive speed, but not long chases. Likely it ambushed prey near rivers, or ran them down over short distances on open plains. One strike of its paws could break a spine. One bite of its jaws could crush a throat. Prey that fell beneath it had little chance to rise again. For early humans in North America, Panthera atrox must have been both rival and terror. Imagine a band of hunters stalking bison across a plain, only to feel eyes watching from tall grass. A shape emerges, golden, massive, shoulders rippling with muscle. An American lion, drawn not to the bison, but to the hunters themselves. Humans were not invisible to these predators. To a cat of such size, a human was easy prey. And yet, the balance was not one-sided. Fire, spears, and cooperation gave humans defenses no animal had ever faced before. Some fossils suggest lions were hunted, their bones found near campsites. Others hint at lions raiding kills, forcing humans to retreat. It was not always clear who was the hunter and who was the hunted. Though extinct for thousands of years, the American lion may survive in human memory. Indigenous traditions across the Americas speak of giant cats, spirits of the plains, hunters of men. In South America, cave art depicts cats larger than life, perhaps inspired by encounters with these vanished beasts. To live in Ice Age America was to live with lions far larger than any known today, a fact that must have shaped fear, myth, and story. The American lion shared its world with saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, and short-faced bears. Each held its niche. Smilodon was the specialist, pinning large prey with sabers. Dire wolves hunted in packs, overwhelming animals with numbers. Bears ranged widely, scavenging or bullying other predators from kills. But the lion stood above all in size. Even short-faced bears, though taller, may have thought twice before confronting a lion at its kill. If Smilodon was the precision blade, Panthera atrox was the hammer, brute force, size, and confidence embodied in fur and claw. 10,000 years ago, the American lion vanished. Its decline mirrored that of so many Ice Age giants. As climates warmed, prey herds shifted and shrank. Humans spread, hunting and competing for the same food sources. Lions that had once ruled unchallenged found themselves in a thinner, harsher world. Unlike modern lions, Panthera atrox could not retreat into forests or savannas. It was too large, too dependent on herds of big game. When those herds faltered, the lion fell. Its extinction left the plains quieter, emptier, its roar silenced forever. The American lion was the largest cat that ever lived, but it was more than a size record. It was a symbol of the Ice Age's abundance, a predator so powerful it could only exist in a world filled with giant prey. Its extinction reminds us of the fragility of abundance, how quickly it can vanish when climates shift and new forces rise. When you picture it, see a cat larger than any alive today, muscles rippling beneath golden fur, stalking across a grassland under pale winter sun. See it crouch low, tail twitching, eyes locked on a herd of bison. Feel the tension of prey sensing its presence. Hear the silence before the strike. And then remember, this was not long ago. Barely 10,000 years. In the scale of Earth, it is yesterday. The land you stand on now was once its domain. Its paws pressed into the same soil, its eyes looked across the same horizons. The American lion is gone. But its shadow still lingers, stretched across memory, stretched across imagination, a reminder that the world we walk is only the latest version of Earth, and that before us, giants truly ruled. And yet, even this lion was not the largest predator of its time. In the north, across tundra and steppe, another giant prowled. Taller than any human, faster than its bulk should allow, its nose keen to carrion, its strength enough to chase lions from their kills. We leave the grasslands of the lion and step into the range of the short-faced bear, the towering runner of the Ice Age. When we think of bears today, we imagine power, grizzlies standing tall, polar bears striding across ice, brown bears swiping salmon from rivers. They are massive, intimidating, but their power lies in bulk, not in speed. Yet during the Ice Age, there lived a bear that defied this rule. A bear taller than any alive today, with legs built not for lumbering but for running. Its name was Arctodus simus, the short-faced bear, and it was among the most formidable predators of the Pleistocene. Fossils tell us that Arctodus simus was immense. On all fours, its shoulders could stand nearly 1.7 meters high. When it rose on its hind legs, it towered over 3 meters, taller than the tallest human, taller even than most mammoths' shoulders. Adult males may have weighed 800 to 1,000 kilograms, with some estimates pushing higher. Only polar bears and Kodiak bears rival it today, and even they fall short in height. Its skull was broad, with shortened snout bones, hence short-faced. This gave it a peculiar, almost flat-nosed look compared to modern bears. But its legs were long and slender, more like those of a wolf or cat than a heavy bear. This anatomy sets Arctodus apart. It was not a slow ambler. It was built for covering ground at speed. The question that has fascinated scientists is what this giant did with such a body. Was it a predator, running down prey across open steppe? Or was it a scavenger, using its size and speed to bully other hunters off their kills? Its long legs suggest cursorial ability, the capacity to run efficiently over long distances. Some reconstructions even picture it chasing horses or camels, racing across plains like a bear-shaped cheetah. But its sheer weight makes this unlikely at high speeds. Instead, many now think it was an opportunistic forager. With a nose finely tuned to scent, it could detect carcasses from kilometers away. Its long stride allowed it to cover vast ranges quickly. And once it arrived at a kill, its size gave it dominance. Even American lions or saber-toothed cats would likely yield to a bear twice their mass. This model, the kleptoparasite, paints Arctodus as the tyrant of the plains, not hunting so much as stealing, its very presence shifting the balance of ecosystems. Stable isotope studies of Arctodus bones add depth to this picture. Chemical traces suggest it ate a high proportion of meat, more carnivorous than modern omnivorous bears. Whether from direct predation or scavenging, flesh was its staple. Some fossils even show wear on teeth consistent with gnawing large carcasses. Yet it may not have been exclusively carnivorous. Like other bears, it could eat plants, berries, and roots when available. But in Ice Age North America, where herds of bison, horses, and mammoths roamed, meat was abundant, and Arctidus seems to have leaned heavily on it. The short-faced bear ranged widely. Fossils are found from Alaska to Florida, from California to Virginia. Few predators have ever held such a vast range in North America. Its adaptability allowed it to live in tundra, forest, and grassland alike, always dominating its ecological niche. Its presence would have shaped the behavior of other predators. Imagine a pride of American lions bringing down a horse, only to have a massive bear arrive, looming over them, forcing them to scatter. Or a Smilodon dragging down a bison, only to lose it moments later to a bear whose sheer bulk claimed the prize. For humans, Arctidus would have been both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Standing taller than a man even on all fours, with speed enough to close distance quickly, it would have been nearly impossible to hunt directly. Early peoples likely avoided confrontation, just as modern humans give wide berth to grizzlies. But encounters were inevitable. At carcasses, in river valleys, at cave mouths, humans and short-faced bears may have contested for food. Fire and weapons gave humans tools, but a charging bear could scatter hunters in an instant. To live in its range was to live in the shadow of a giant whose hunger never ended. It is no surprise that indigenous traditions across North America speak of enormous bears, beings of both fear and reverence. Perhaps these myths are echoes of real encounters with Arctidus simus, remembered across generations. Around 11,000 years ago, Arctidus simus vanished. As with many Ice Age megafauna, its decline came as climates warmed and prey herds dwindled. Its specialized lifestyle may have doomed it. Built for meat, it could not shift easily to plants when big game disappeared. And unlike smaller bears, it needed vast ranges to roam. Humans, too, may have played a role. As hunters grew more efficient, carcasses became scarcer. Fire, spears, and coordinated hunting reduced the opportunities for scavengers. Giants that relied on abundance found themselves without enough to sustain their size. The short-faced bear was not simply a larger version of modern bears. It was something different, an experiment in power and speed combined. Neither pure predator nor pure scavenger, it was a creature that bent ecosystems around its hunger. To picture it alive is to see an immense form loping across open tundra, legs long, shoulders high, fur rippling in the wind. To see it approach a kill is to watch lions retreat, saber-toothed cats vanish, even mammoth calves left undefended. Its dominance was not in packs, but in singularity. One bear was enough to change the balance of the hunt. And then imagine the silence after its extinction. No longer did lions yield. No longer did carcasses vanish beneath towering forms. The plains grew quieter, emptier. Arctidus simus reminds us that power is not always about speed or strength alone. Sometimes it is about presence, the presence to claim, to dominate, to rule. For tens of thousands of years, the short-faced bear was such a presence. And though it is gone, the memory of towering bears lingers, etched into myth, written in bone, waiting for us to imagine the sound of heavy paws crossing frozen ground. But the Ice Age was not only predators. It was also filled with giants of another kind, slow, lumbering, armored with claws as long as swords. Beasts that grazed and browsed not in haste, but in patience, shaping forests with their bulk. From the towering bear, we turn now to the gentle colossi of the Ice Age, the giant ground sloths. In today's world, the sloth is a small, unassuming creature. It hangs upside down in tropical trees, moving slowly, almost dreamlike, feeding on leaves and avoiding attention. But in the Ice Age, sloths were titans. They walked not in branches, but on the ground, rising taller than elephants, armed with claws-like sides, bodies vast and powerful. These were the giant ground sloths, Megatherium, Eremotherium, and their kin, among the strangest and most majestic herbivores to ever walk the earth. The family of ground sloths was diverse. More than 80 species are known, ranging from dog-sized burrowers to towering Megatherium, which could reach 6 meters in length and weigh over 4 tons. Their range stretched from the grasslands of South America to the woodlands of North America, from coastal plains to mountain valleys. The largest, Megatherium americanum, roamed South America, especially Argentina and Uruguay. Slightly smaller but still enormous, Eremotherium spread into Central and North America, its fossils found as far north as New Jersey. Together, these species remind us that the Ice Age was not only an age of predators and mammoths, but also of massive herbivores unlike any alive today. A giant ground sloth looked almost alien. Its body was barrel-shaped, with long, powerful limbs. Its head was small, with blunt teeth built for grinding plants. Its most striking feature was its claws, long, curved, some over 30 centimeters, resembling sickles of bone. At first glance, such claws seem like weapons. But their true purpose was more subtle. They were tools, for pulling down branches, stripping bark, and digging roots. To feed, a sloth could rear up on its hind legs, balancing its enormous body with a heavy tail, using its forelimbs to grab vegetation out of reach. In this posture, a Megatherium stood more than 4 meters tall, towering over nearly everything else around it. Their pace was slow, deliberate. Like modern sloths, they were not built for speed. But slowness was not weakness. Few predators dared attack an adult. A swing of those massive claws could kill. Even Smilodon or American lions would have thought twice before challenging a healthy giant sloth. For a long time, scientists debated what exactly these creatures ate. Their teeth suggested a diet of leaves, stems, and bark. But isotope analysis and where patterns hint at flexibility. Some species grazed grasslands. Others browsed woodlands. In environments where seasons shifted food supply, they may have been opportunists, eating whatever plant matter they could reach. Their role in ecosystems was immense. Like elephants today, they likely shaped landscapes. By knocking down trees, stripping bark, and digging for roots, they opened space for grasses and changed the structure of forests. Their dung fertilized soils, spreading seeds. Fossilized sloth dung, preserved in caves, shows seeds of plants that still sprout when exposed to moisture, even after 10,000 years, a living legacy carried through time. Humans encountered these giants when they spread into the Americas. To see a giant sloth alive would have been a shocking experience. Imagine a creature larger than an elephant, standing upright, claws gleaming, slow but deliberate. For a band of hunters, it was both opportunity and danger. Evidence suggests that humans hunted them. At sites in South America, sloth bones show cut marks from stone tools, signs of butchering. In North America, a trackway discovered in New Mexico tells a haunting story, the footprints of a giant sloth, moving erratically, surrounded by human prints. It seems people harassed the animal, dodging as it swung its claws, before finally bringing it down. A frozen moment of conflict preserved in stone. To kill a sloth meant survival. Its flesh could feed many, its hide could shelter, its bones could serve as tools. But it also meant risk. One strike from its claws could tear open a hunter. These encounters must have been moments of both courage and desperation. Like so many Ice Age giants, the ground sloths vanished between 12,000 and 10,000 years ago. Climate change played a role. Warming reduced their habitats, shrinking the forests and grasslands they relied upon. But human hunting likely accelerated their fall. A species slowed to reproduce, with few natural defenses beyond size, could not withstand sustained pressure. And yet, they did not vanish everywhere at once. On islands like the Caribbean's Hispaniola and Cuba, smaller ground sloths survived until just a few thousand years ago. Some may have lived long enough to meet the first peoples of those islands. Imagine arriving by canoe, only to find strange, lumbering beasts in the forests, echoes of a world already lost elsewhere. The giant ground sloths remind us that the Ice Age was not simply a mirror of today's world with larger versions of familiar animals. It was stranger, more experimental. Sloths the size of elephants roamed alongside armadillos as big as cars and beavers the size of bears. The variety of life stretched imagination. To picture a megatherium alive is to imagine a slow, deliberate titan moving through a forest, rearing up to pull down branches, its claws slicing through bark, its hide alive with shaggy fur. Birds may have perched on its back, picking insects. Calves may have followed, smaller but still massive. The earth would have trembled slightly beneath their weight. For humans, they were not only prey but part of the fabric of existence, giants that had to be reckoned with, respected, feared. Their absence left landscapes changed. Forests grew denser. Grasslands shifted. Plants once spread by their dung lost their dispersers. Their disappearance reshaped ecosystems as surely as their presence had once shaped them. Today, their memory survives in fossils, in caves, in dung hardened by millennia. And perhaps in myth. Stories of clawed monsters, tree-toppling beasts, and forest spirits may echo dimly from encounters with these vanished creatures. If the giant ground sloths were the lumbering gardeners of the Ice Age, reshaping forests with their claws, then others took a different path. Some protected themselves not with size alone, but with armor, shells of bone fused into domes, turning their bodies into living fortresses. From the slow might of the sloths, we move to their armored contemporaries, the Glyptodons, the tanks of the Pleistocene. Among the strangest beasts of the Ice Age were creatures that looked both familiar and alien. To modern eyes, they resemble armadillos, small, harmless insect eaters that roll into balls. But in the Pleistocene, their cousins were titans. Some the size of cars, armored from head to tail, carrying domes of bone thicker than a knight's shield. These were the Glyptodons, the living tanks of the Ice Age. A fully grown Glyptodon could reach 4 meters in length, stand more than 1.5 meters tall at the shoulder, and weigh nearly 2 tons. Its most striking feature was its shell, a carapace made of more than 1,000 bony plates, or osteoderms, fused together into a solid dome. Unlike the flexible bands of modern armadillos, this shell was rigid, covering the animal's back like a fortress. Its tail was equally formidable. Some species, such as Doedicurus, carried tails tipped with heavy clubs, studded with spikes of bone. These could be swung with bone-crushing force, capable of breaking the limbs of predators or even cracking the shells of rival Glyptodons. A duel between 2 males may have sounded like stone striking stone, reverberating across the plains. Their heads, too, were partially armored, capped with bony plates. Their bodies were short and wide, built low to the ground, with powerful legs designed not for speed but for steady plodding. They were not runners. They were fortresses on 4 legs. Despite their fearsome appearance, Glyptodons were herbivores. Their teeth were simple, peg-like, suited for grinding tough vegetation. They grazed on grasses, shrubs, and aquatic plants, pulling up food with broad jaws and chewing steadily. Some studies suggest they may have fed near rivers and wetlands, using their bulk to wade into water in search of plants. Their metabolism was likely slow, like that of modern armadillos, meaning they needed less food relative to their size than we might expect. But their weight and armored shells meant they required wide, open spaces with abundant vegetation. Fossils suggest they preferred plains and river valleys, where herds of grazers congregated. Glyptodons lived alongside fearsome predators, saber-toothed cats, American lions, and short-faced bears. Yet their armor made them difficult targets. A predator might attempt to flip a young Glyptodon onto its back, where the belly was unprotected. But against adults, direct attack was nearly impossible. The tail club added a layer of active defense. Swung with speed, it could strike with the force of a sledgehammer. A predator too bold might find its ribs broken, its skull fractured. Even rival Glyptodons bore damage. Fossil shells show deep cracks and punctures, likely inflicted in combat during mating disputes. Their shells, once thought unbreakable, were not invincible. Modern experiments striking fossilized Glyptodon armor with force have shown it could fracture under concentrated blows. Still, the time and risk required made most predators choose easier prey. For humans, Glyptodons were both resource and hazard. Archaeological sites in South America suggest they were hunted. Their meat would have been valuable, though difficult to access beneath the shell. But the shell itself was a prize. Evidence shows humans may have used empty shells as shelters, natural domes against rain and wind. In Patagonia, legends speak of houses of stone, used by the first peoples, perhaps memories of Glyptodon shells turned into dwellings. Carvings and tools made from osteoderms confirm their cultural value. To Ice Age humans, the Glyptodon was not only food but also architecture, material, and symbol. But hunting them was not simple. Spears could wound, but to kill required patience and strategy. Driving one into a bog or ambush, waiting for exhaustion, may have been the only way. To face its tail in combat was to risk shattered bones. Hunters who killed Glyptodons must have done so with caution and courage. Like many megafauna, Glyptodons disappeared around 10,000 years ago. Their size, slow reproduction, and specialized lifestyle made them vulnerable. As climates warmed, grasslands shifted, and human hunting added pressure, their numbers dwindled. The last Glyptodons fell in South America, leaving behind only fossils and stories. Their extinction reshaped ecosystems. Without their grazing, some landscapes grew denser. Without their shells, humans lost a natural resource. And without their presence, the Ice Age lost one of its strangest forms, a walking fortress, gone forever. Glyptodons remind us that evolution often repeats itself in unexpected ways. Armadillos today are tiny shadows of their armored cousins, but they carry the same basic design: osteoderms, digging claws, a cautious lifestyle. The difference is scale. What was once the size of a car is now the size of a cat. To picture a Glyptodon alive is to see a herd of armored giants moving slowly across a plain, their domes catching sunlight, their tails swaying like clubs. Perhaps birds perched on their backs, picking insects. Perhaps calves walked close to mothers, their smaller shells still forming. When threatened, they huddled together, tails ready, a wall of bone and muscle. For humans, they must have seemed both familiar and alien, not unlike armadillos, yet impossibly large. To stumble upon one while crossing a river valley would have been like meeting a creature from myth. Their memory lingers in fossils, in shells that still shine with the polish of ancient ware. They remind us that the Ice Age was not only cold and harsh, but also inventive, producing shapes that look more like fantasy than reality. If Glyptodons wore fortresses on their backs, others grew fortresses above their heads. In the forests of Ice Age Europe, deer rose with antlers so vast they stretched wider than a man's height. Creatures of beauty and burden, their crowns were both weapon and display. From armored domes, we move now to living trees of bone, the Irish elk, kings of the northern forests. Of all the giants of the Ice Age, few stirred the imagination like the Irish elk, Megaloceros giganteus. Despite its name, it was not confined to Ireland, nor was it a true elk. It was a deer, the largest that ever lived, a monarch of the northern forests and plains, crowned with antlers that stretched wider than a man is tall. To stand before one alive would have been to see not just an animal, but a living monument of bone and beauty. A mature male Irish elk carried antlers spanning up to 3.5 to 4 meters from tip to tip, weighing as much as 40 kilograms. Imagine antlers as wide as a small car, rising from the head of a deer taller than a horse at the shoulder. Each year, those antlers were grown anew, fed by rivers of blood and nutrients, only to be shed when the season ended. The energy required was immense, a testament to the strength of the males and the richness of the ecosystems that supported them. The antlers were not simple branches. They were intricate, broad, and flat, like open hands reaching outward. Their purpose was not just combat, but display. In the cool mornings of mating season, males likely clashed, their antlers crashing like thunder as they wrestled for dominance. But even more often, they may have served as signals, silent declarations of strength, visible from far across meadows and woodlands. The Irish elk was immense. Males stood up to 2 meters at the shoulder, weighing 600 to 700 kilograms. Their bodies were robust but built for grazing, with long legs that carried them across open landscapes. Females were smaller and lacked antlers, but were no less imposing. Their range was vast, stretching from Ireland through continental Europe and into Siberia. They thrived in the grasslands and park-like forests that spread across Eurasia during cooler periods of the Pleistocene. Despite their antlers, they were not predators or warriors. They were grazers, feeding on grasses, sedges, and herbs, supplemented with shrubs and leaves. Their wide muzzles were suited for sweeping up large volumes of vegetation, much like modern elk. Herds of Irish elk may have wandered meadows and river valleys, their crowns rising above the grasses like moving trees. Their presence would have shaped landscapes. By grazing in large numbers, they kept grasslands open, preventing forests from encroaching. Their dung fertilized soil, spreading nutrients. Their antlers, once shed, would have been gnawed by rodents and scavengers, recycling minerals back into the ecosystem. For all their size, Irish elk were vulnerable, especially in youth. Calves may have fallen prey to wolves, lions, and saber-toothed cats. Adults, with their towering bodies and deadly antlers, were harder targets. But in harsh winters, weakened by hunger, even the mighty could fall. Fossil sites reveal skeletons with broken antlers, signs of combat and injury. The antlers, magnificent as they were, may also have been burdens. In dense forests, they were awkward, catching on branches. In times of poor nutrition, growing them was costly, draining calcium from bones and leaving skeletons fragile. Some paleontologists once argued the antlers grew too large, a maladaptation that doomed the species. But others counter that for hundreds of thousands of years, the Irish elk thrived with those crowns, proof they were not evolutionary mistakes but successful strategies for reproduction. For humans, the Irish elk was both resource and symbol. Its meat could feed families. Its hide could warm and shelter. Its bones and antlers could become tools, weapons, or art. Archaeological sites show antlers carved into objects, evidence of their value beyond simple survival. In caves of France, engravings depict deer with vast antlers, perhaps Irish elk, remembered in flickering firelight. In Ireland itself, peat bogs preserved skulls with antlers so wide they still awe museum visitors today. Imagine stumbling upon such remains in ancient times, a skull larger than life, crowned with antlers wider than your reach. To see it would be to confront both wonder and mystery. In myths and stories, antlered beings often appear, forest kings, stag spirits, guardians of the wild. Perhaps such tales trace back to memories of the Irish elk, the most antlered creature ever to walk the earth. Around 7,700 years ago, the last Irish elk vanished. Climate change played a role. As forests spread after the Ice Age, the open grasslands they favored shrank. Hunting by humans added pressure. But perhaps most crucial was the cost of their antlers. In times of plenty, males could afford to grow them. In times of scarcity, The energy drained their bodies, weakening bones and leaving them vulnerable. The last populations lingered in Siberia, where cold steppe grasslands survived longest. There, isolated herds carried their crowns for a few more centuries before fading into silence. The Irish elk stands as one of evolution's great experiments. Its antlers remind us that nature does not always favor efficiency, but often extravagance, beauty, and display as much as survival. They remind us that strength is not only in tooth and claw, but in form and presence. To picture them alive is to imagine dawn on an ice-age meadow. Mist rising, grass shimmering with frost. A herd of deer grazing, females calm, calves at their sides. And then the males, enormous, crowned with antlers spreading like branches, catching sunlight as they lift their heads. In the distance, two clash, antlers crashing, echoes rolling across the valley. The sound fades, but the image remains, a living forest of bone, carried proudly, shed each year, regrown in cycles as old as time. If the Irish elk was the crowned king of the meadows, then farther north roamed another giant, shaggy and horned. Covered in fur, armed with a pair of great horns sweeping forward, painted by humans on cave walls, it was a beast that endured bitter cold alongside mammoths. From crowns of antler, we move now to the armored strength of the woolly rhinoceros. Among the frozen plains of Eurasia, where mammoths marched and cave lions hunted, another giant grazed with its head low to the snow. Shaggy, broad, and armed with horns longer than a man's arm, it was one of the Ice Age's most iconic beasts, the woolly rhinoceros, Coelodonta antiquitatis. Preserved in bone, cave art, and even frozen carcasses, it remains one of the clearest windows into a vanished world, a creature both formidable and strangely familiar. The woolly rhinoceros was massive. Adults stood 1.8 meters tall at the shoulder, stretched over 3.5 meters in length, and weighed up to 3,000 kilograms, heavier than most modern cars. Their bodies were covered in dense coats of shaggy hair, shades of brown and rust that insulated them against glacial winds. Beneath this fur lay a thick layer of fat, sometimes up to 10 centimeters deep, keeping warmth locked inside. But their most striking feature was the pair of horns on their heads. The front horn, often more than a meter long, was flattened side to side, worn into ridges from scraping snow to reach grass beneath. The smaller horn behind it added a second weapon, useful in defense or combat. These horns, made of keratin like human nails, were tools, ornaments, and weapons in one. Their skulls were low and elongated, with wide nasal passages lined with blood vessels, likely adaptations to warm icy air before it reached the lungs. Their legs were short and sturdy, built to carry enormous weight, their feet broad for stability on snow and mud. Everything about them spoke of endurance, creatures shaped not for speed, but for persistence in a cold, hard land. Woolly rhinos thrived in the mammoth steppe, a biome that stretched from Western Europe across Siberia into Eastern Asia. This steppe was neither dense forest nor barren tundra, but a vast, cold grassland filled with hardy plants, grasses, sedges, herbs, and mosses. Their grazing left clear traces. Where patterns on fossil horns show they scraped snow away to expose grass, while isotope studies confirm a diet dominated by steppe vegetation. In frozen stomach contents from Siberia, remains of buttercups, grasses, and sedges still lie intact, as though chewed yesterday. These discoveries allow us to imagine them lowering their great heads to sweep snow aside, clearing patches of green in a white world. Of all Ice Age animals, the woolly rhinoceros is among the best documented in cave art. In the Chauvet Cave of France, dating back over 30,000 years, rhinos are painted with striking accuracy. Bulky bodies, long horns, even the ridges from horn were captured in ochre and charcoal. Some scenes show rhinos clashing horn to horn, likely a reflection of real behavior during mating contests. These images tell us that humans not only saw them, but studied them closely, enough to depict details invisible in fossil bones. To the people of Ice Age Europe, the woolly rhinoceros was not myth, but neighbor, dangerous, powerful, and unforgettable. Like modern rhinos, woolly rhinos were likely solitary or lived in small groups. Calves stayed close to mothers, protected by the sweep of her horns. Males may have fought for dominance, using their horns in displays and clashes. Fossils of skulls with healed fractures suggest such combat was frequent but rarely fatal. Their senses were finely tuned for survival. Their eyes were small, but their noses large and sensitive, able to smell food under snow or detect predators at distance. Their hearing was sharp, their ears swiveling in cold winds. Though heavy and slow-looking, they could charge with surprising speed when threatened, horns lowered like lances. For early humans, such charges would have been terrifying, far more dangerous than confronting mammoths, which sometimes avoided conflict. Adult woolly rhinos had few natural enemies. Lions, wolves, and saber-toothed cats may have preyed on calves, but an adult's size and weapons made attack dangerous. More lethal than predators was the environment itself. Winters could be long, snow deep, vegetation scarce. Starvation was a constant risk. Injuries from combat or falls might also prove fatal, with carcasses preserved in permafrost still showing broken bones. But the greatest new predator arrived late: humans. Archaeological sites show cut marks on rhino bones, evidence of butchering. Spears and fire may have been used to hunt or drive them, though such hunts carried enormous risk. More often, humans may have scavenged dead rhinos, taking meat and hides. For hunters, the reward was immense. A single rhino provided tons of meat, enough fat for lamps, hides for shelter, and horn for tools. Around 14,000 years ago, woolly rhinoceroses began to decline. By 10,000 years ago, they were gone. Climate change reshaped their world. As the Ice Age ended, steppe grasslands gave way to forests and bogs. Plants they depended on shrank in range. Populations fragmented, shrinking into isolated pockets. Humans may have hastened the end through hunting, but evidence suggests climate was the main driver. Unlike mammoths, which survived on Wrangel Island until just 4,000 years ago, rhinos had no refuge. Their specialized adaptations tied them to the mammoth steppe, and when that ecosystem vanished, so did they. The woolly rhinoceros embodies the Ice Age balance of strength and fragility. For hundreds of thousands of years, it endured, shaping and shaped by its environment. Its horns scraped snow for grass, its body warmed by fat and fur, its form painted by humans who both feared and revered it. And then, as quickly as glaciers melted, it was gone. To imagine it alive is to stand on a frozen plain beneath a pale sun, wind cutting through silence. Ahead, a shape moves, massive, shaggy, horns sweeping side to side as it clears snow. Its breast steams in the air, nostrils flaring, head lowering to graze. If approached, it lifts its head sharply, horn glinting, ready to charge. A living fortress of fur and keratin, master of the cold. Its memory endures in fossils, in paintings, in frozen remains. In caves, rhinos still clash in charcoal. In museums, their horns and bones still carry scars of life. And in our imagination, they remain symbols of a time when even the grasslands bore giants. But no story of the Ice Age is complete without humans. For while mammoths, lions, and rhinos roamed, humans walked among them, small, fragile, yet armed with fire, stone, and cooperation. They were hunters and gatherers, but also prey. Their lives intertwined with the giants, sometimes in harmony, often in struggle. From the horned titan of the steppes, we turn now to ourselves, to humanity's place in the Ice Age world. The Ice Age is remembered for mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and armored sloths, but its most unlikely survivor was us. Humans, small and soft-skinned, without tusks, horns, or claws, walked into a world of predators and giants, and somehow endured. To understand the Ice Age is to understand not only the beasts that ruled the plains, but the fragile beings who lived beside them: hunters, gatherers, wanderers, people whose lives were hard, brief, and astonishingly resilient. By the height of the last Ice Age, around 20,000 years ago, humans had spread across Africa, Europe, Asia, and into the edges of the Americas. They carried no permanent homes, only what they could carry. Fire was their shield, stone their weapon, skin and bone their shelter. Imagine their world: glaciers covering half of Europe and North America, seas locked in ice, rivers frozen in winter silence. The mammoth steppe stretched from Spain to Siberia, from Alaska to Patagonia, a vast, treeless grassland rich in life but poor in comfort. Temperatures could plunge to minus 40 degrees Celsius. Wind scoured plains, stripping warmth from skin. In such conditions, survival was not guaranteed. Every day was a test. Humans adapted not with strength of body, but with invention. Stone tools, carefully knapped from flint or obsidian, were knives, scrapers, spear points. Fire, carried from camp to camp, warmed bodies and kept predators at bay. Needles carved from bone stitched hides into clothing, insulating hunters against the cold. In Europe, caves offered refuge, natural shelters against snow and wind. In Siberia, humans built huts from mammoth bones, their domes covered in hides, warmed with fires inside. These dwellings, fragile yet ingenious, were havens in a hostile land. Their weapons were simple but effective. Spears tipped with stone could pierce thick hides. Later, the outlawed, a spear thrower, gave them greater range, letting them wound giants from distance. Against mammoths or bison, hunting required teamwork, planning, courage. Though remembered as hunters, Ice Age humans survived as much on gathering. Women and children collected roots, berries, nuts, and seeds. Dried plants stored through winter kept groups alive when game was scarce. Meat was prized, but plants formed the steady base of survival. When hunts succeeded, they offered abundance. A single mammoth could feed dozens, its fat burned in lamps, its hide sewn into clothing, its bones carved into tools. Nothing was wasted. Even sinew became thread, intestines became cord. The body of a giant was transformed into the lifeblood of a community. Humans were not top predators. They were competitors in a land full of hunters far larger, stronger, and faster. Cave lions, saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, and bears all saw humans as rivals, and sometimes as prey. In open plains, lions may have ambushed camps. In forests, bears prowled caves already occupied by humans. Fossil evidence tells of such encounters: puncture marks in human bones, or bones scattered in predator dens. A lone hunter caught on the wrong path could easily vanish. Night must have been filled with unease. Beyond the glow of fire, eyes glinted in the dark. Every sound of breaking twigs, every shift of wind carried threat. To live was to be both hunter and hunted, fragile in the chain of life. Yet even in hardship, humans made art. In Chauvet, Altamira, and Lascaux caves, they painted mammoths, lions, bison, and woolly rhinos with precision and beauty. Flickering firelight would have made the animals seem alive, herds moving across stone walls. These paintings were not mere decorations. They were rituals, memories, perhaps prayers for successful hunts or respect for the beasts they depended on. Carvings in bone and ivory depict animals and human figures, some abstract, some detailed. Venus figurines, small carvings of female forms, suggest fertility symbols or sacred representations of survival itself. These creations show that even in cold and hunger, humans sought meaning beyond mere survival. Clothing was not luxury but necessity. Hides from reindeer, mammoths, and bison were scraped, softened, and sewn into parkas, boots, and cloaks. Fur-lined hoods, mittens, and leggings. Without such garments, frostbite would have been inevitable. Fire was equally vital. Beyond warmth, it cooked meat, made bones brittle for toolmaking, hardened wooden spears. Fires lit at cave mouths kept predators at bay, their smoke rising as signals of presence. In the long winter nights, firelight became a hearth of survival, a circle of safety against the dark. Life expectancy was short. Many died before 30, of disease, injury, or accident. Childbirth was dangerous. Hunting wounds could become fatal. Frostbite, infections, starvation, these were constants. Yet bands endured. They endured because they shared. A mammoth kill was not for one family, but for all. Fire was tended carefully, passed between groups. Knowledge of plants, seasons, and migrations was taught across generations. The strength of humans lay not in individuals, but in communities, fragile bodies bound together by cooperation. For Ice Age humans, every animal carried meaning. Mammoths were both food and awe, painted on walls with reverence. Woolly rhinos, dangerous and powerful, were etched into memory. Lions and bears were feared, their presence shaping caution. Even sloths and glyptodons, strange and slow, were seen as part of a world where humans were not masters but participants. The line between myth and reality blurred. Spirits of animals may have been invoked in rituals. Hunts may have been guided by dreams of beasts. Survival was practical, but always carried echoes of wonder. The Ice Age was also the time of journeys. As glaciers locked water into ice, sea levels dropped, exposing land bridges. Across Beringia, humans crossed from Siberia into the Americas, following herds of bison and mammoths. Within a few thousand years, they spread to Patagonia, encountering new landscapes and unfamiliar beasts. These migrations reshaped the world. Wherever humans went, ecosystems changed. Some species adapted, others vanished. The arrival of humans in the Americas coincided with the decline of mammoths, mastodons, and ground sloths. Whether by hunting, competition, or simply pressure on fragile ecosystems, humans left a mark that endures. To imagine humans in the Ice Age is to set aside modern notions of dominance. They were not conquerors, but survivors, fragile bodies wrapped in fur, armed with flint, standing against cold and beasts far stronger. And yet their minds, their hands, their communities gave them an edge no other animal possessed. Picture a small band crossing a snowy plain, children wrapped in hides, adults carrying spears, fire carried in embers within shells. Ahead, a herd of mammoths grazes, steam rising from their bodies in the cold. Behind, the wind howls, carrying scents of wolves. Around the fire that night, stories are told, of spirits, of animals, of survival. In such stories, humanity found both strength and meaning. We survived the Ice Age not by conquering it, but by enduring it. By bending without breaking, by learning from the beasts around us, by honoring them in art and in memory. But survival was only the beginning. As humans spread farther and hunted more, questions arise. Did our ancestors play a role in the disappearance of the giants? Were mammoths, mastodons, and sloths doomed by climate alone, or by the sharp stone points of human spears? From humanity's entrance into the Ice Age, we now step into debate, the story of the Clovis hunters, and the question of whether humans ended the age of giants. The Ice Age was a world of abundance, but also of fragility. Herds of mammoths, mastodons, and bison filled the plains. Lions and saber-toothed cats hunted them, wolves and bears scavenged what remained. And into this balance stepped humans, small bands of hunter-gatherers armed with stone tools, fire, and cooperation. Their arrival in the Americas marked one of the most dramatic chapters in prehistory. Within a few thousand years, the great beasts that had defined the Pleistocene vanished. The question remains, was it climate alone that ended them, or did humans, fragile in form but powerful in mind, play the decisive role? The Clovis people, named after a site near Clovis, New Mexico, flourished around 13,000 years ago. Their hallmark was a distinct stone technology, fluted spear points, carefully knapped and sharpened, some up to 20 centimeters long. These were not crude stones, but works of precision, designed to be hafted onto spears and hurled with deadly accuracy. Clovis points have been found across North America, from Alaska to Florida, marking a culture that spread widely in a short time. Often, they are found alongside the bones of mammoths, mastodons, and bison, clear evidence that these hunters targeted giants. The image is vivid, bands of hunters stalking herds across the plains, waiting for the right moment. Spears fly, points driving deep into flesh. A mammoth stumbles, trumpets, collapses. The ground shakes with its fall. For the hunters, triumph means survival, meat, fat, hide, bone. For the mammoth, it means the end of a line stretching back millions of years. One theory argues that humans, newly arrived and skilled in cooperative hunting, drove megafauna to extinction in what scientists call the overkill hypothesis. According to this idea, even small numbers of humans could, over centuries, eliminate slow-reproducing species. Mammoths, mastodons, and giant sloths took decades to reach maturity and produced only a few offspring in a lifetime. If hunters killed even a small percentage of adults each year, populations could collapse. Archaeological evidence supports this. Kill sites with butchered mammoth bones, spear points embedded in ribs, cut marks on carcasses. In this view, the spread of humans into the Americas was a wave of extinction. Wherever they arrived, the giants fell, unable to reproduce fast enough to keep pace with human predation. But another theory points to climate. Around 12,000 years ago, the Ice Age ended. Temperatures rose, glaciers retreated, and ecosystems transformed. Grasslands gave way to forests. Rivers shifted, wetlands dried. The mammoth steppe, once the richest biome on Earth, vanished almost entirely. Species tied to that ecosystem declined. Mammoths could not thrive in dense forests. Ground sloths lost the open spaces they needed. Woolly rhinos disappeared as grasslands shrank. In this view, humans were witnesses, not executioners. The giants were doomed by warming skies and changing lands. Most scientists today see truth in both explanations. Climate stress weakened populations. Human hunting pushed them over the edge. Alone, either force might have been survivable. Together, they were fatal. Consider a herd of mammoths. Warmer winters shorten the season of snow, reducing the grass they depend on. Calves weaken. Then hunters arrive, spears flying. Each loss matters more in a population already under strain. Year by year, the herd shrinks, until only bones remain. The debate is written into fossils and artifacts. At the Manus site in Washington, a mastodon rib was found with a bone spearpoint embedded in it, dating back nearly 14,000 years. At Blackwater Draw in New Mexico, mammoth bones lie scattered with Clovis points. At Leaner Ranch in Arizona, 13 mammoths were butchered by hunters. But not all extinctions fit the hunting model. Some species vanished in places where human evidence is thin. Others survived longer on isolated islands. These patterns suggest complexity, not a single cause, but a web of pressures. For the Clovis people, life was harsh but rich. A successful hunt meant abundance, meat dried for storage, hides sewn into clothing, bones carved into awls, needles, and ornaments. Camps were filled with the smell of roasting fat, fires crackled, children played in the shadow of tusks. But failure meant hunger. Herds moved unpredictably, storms struck without warning, predators lingered near carcasses. To hunt mammoths was both triumph and gamble. For every kill, there was risk. A charging mammoth could scatter hunters, trample the unwary, crush the careless. Bones of humans found alongside mammoths may mark hunts gone wrong. Survival was never certain. By 10,000 years ago, the great herds were gone. Mammoths vanished from mainland North America. Mastodons disappeared. Saber-toothed cats and American lions followed, their prey dwindling. Ground sloths, glyptodons, and giant beavers fell silent. The Clovis culture itself faded, replaced by regional traditions. But the marks they left endured: spear points in bones, carvings in ivory, stories in memory. For humans, the end of the giants meant a shift. No longer could they rely on mammoth hunts to sustain them. They turned to smaller game, to plants, to fishing and gathering. Slowly, across millennia, the first steps toward farming began. The end of the Ice Age giants marked the beginning of a new human age. The story of the Clovis hunters is not one of blame, but of recognition. Humans were part of nature, not separate from it. They hunted to live, as lions and wolves did. The difference was only in scale, in tools, in the power of cooperation. To picture them is to imagine a cold plain, hunters crouched behind ridges, watching mammoths graze. Spears are ready, nerves taut. At a signal, they rise, weapons fly, chaos erupts. Trumpets echo, snow churns, the earth trembles. Hours later, silence falls. A giant lies still, and a community gathers to begin the work of survival. The giants are gone now, but the lessons remain. We are creatures of fragility who learn to thrive not with strength, but with ingenuity. In the bones of mammoths and the flutes of ivory, in the art on cave walls and the scars on stone points, we see ourselves, hunters, survivors, and shapers of worlds. And yet, not all giants vanished. Even as mammoths fell and mastodons disappeared, a few species endured, clinging to isolated refuges or adapting to new conditions. On a lonely Arctic island, mammoths survived into the age of pyramids. In northern tundras, musk oxen still graze. In the howls of wolves and the eyes of oxen, the Ice Age is not entirely gone. From the debate of extinction, we now turn to survival, to the last mammoths of Wrangel Island. When most of the Ice Age giants had fallen silent, when mastodons and saber-toothed cats were long gone, when mammoth herds had vanished from the plains of Europe and America, a few survivors lingered in an unlikely refuge. On a remote island in the Arctic Ocean, cut off from the mainland by rising seas, a population of woolly mammoths endured for thousands of years after their kin had disappeared. These were the Wrangel Island mammoths, the last breath of a vanished world, holding on until just 4,000 years ago. When pyramids already stood in Egypt, when Sumerian cities bustled with trade, when humans were writing the earliest records of history, mammoths still walked beneath Arctic skies. Wrangel Island lies off the northeastern coast of Siberia, a windswept land of tundra and cliffs, snowbound for much of the year. During the Ice Age, it was part of the Beringian landmass, a cold but fertile steppe that stretched across what is now the Bering Strait. When glaciers melted and seas rose around 10,000 years ago, Wrangel was cut off, trapping a small population of mammoths. Here they remained, isolated from predators, protected from hunters, sustained by the sparse vegetation of the tundra. While mammoths vanished elsewhere, here they walked in silence, a remnant of a world already gone. The Wrangel mammoths were smaller than their ancestors. Adults stood only about 2.3 meters tall at the shoulder, more like large ponies than the towering giants of the mainland. This, dwarfing, is a common pattern for island species, where limited resources favor smaller bodies. Yet they were still true mammoths, shaggy and tusked, their bodies adapted to cold winds and snow. Their diet was the tundra's meager offering: grasses, sedges, mosses, and herbs. Their tusks, worn smooth, show signs of scraping snow to reach berry vegetation. Bones and dung confirm their presence across the island, scattered in valleys where herds once grazed. Life here must have been harsh. Winters long, summers short, storms fierce. Yet for thousands of years, they endured, a testament to resilience in isolation. This isolation allowed mammoths to linger nearly 6,000 years longer than their mainland relatives, longer than recorded history itself has existed. Yet survival came at a cost. Genetic studies of Wrangel mammoths revealed troubling patterns. With a small founding population, their gene pool was limited. Over generations, harmful mutations accumulated. Some may have altered their sense of smell, fertility, or coat quality. By their final centuries, They were genetically fragile, vulnerable to disease and environmental stress. Even so, they endured, proof that life can persist even in fragile states, clinging to the edges of possibility. Around 4,000 years ago, the mammoths disappeared. The cause is still debated. Climate may have shifted just enough to reduce vegetation. Humans may have reached the island, hunting or disrupting fragile ecosystems. Or disease may have swept through weakened herds. Whatever the cause, their end was quiet. No great battles, no final charge. Just the slow dwindling of a small, isolated population, until the last mammoth walked alone, and then there were none. What makes Wrangel mammoths extraordinary is their overlap with human history. While Egyptians built the Great Pyramid, mammoths grazed Arctic valleys. While Mesopotamian scribes carved cuneiform, mammoth calves followed mothers across Wrangel's tundra. While Chinese dynasties rose, mammoths still shook snow from their shaggy coats. The thought is haunting: our ancestors could have met them. Sailors or hunters venturing far north might have glimpsed them. Perhaps stories of giant hairy elephants entered myth, echoes of real survivors. The Wrangel mammoths remind us that extinction is not always sudden, but can linger as whispers, long after the main chorus has ended. They show us that survival is possible in the margins, in the forgotten places of the earth. To imagine them alive is to see a small herd moving slowly across snowbound valleys, tusks low, calves huddled close, the northern lights flickering above. In the silence of Arctic wind, their footsteps press into snow, leaving trails that vanish by morning. And then picture the end, a last mammoth, standing alone, its herd gone, its world empty. It lifts its head to the wind, trumpets weakly into silence, and walks into history. But the Ice Age did not vanish entirely. Though the great mammoths and mastodons fell, some species endured. Musk oxen still graze Arctic tundras. Reindeer still migrate across snow. Wolves, foxes, and owls still thrive in cold lands. These are living echoes of the Pleistocene, reminders that not all was lost. From the lonely mammoths of Wrangel, we move now to the survivors of the Ice Age, creatures still among us today. The cave bear is gone, yet its presence lingers. In the bones that still lie deep beneath mountains. In the scratches of claws on limestone walls. In the careful placement of skulls, as though humans long ago sought to honor or appease them. These echoes remind us that survival is not only about who lived, but about who shaped memory. The Ice Age left silence where once giants walked. But in that silence, humans filled the dark with story and symbol. And so the cave bear endures, not as flesh and fur, but as shadow and spirit, a reminder that even extinction cannot erase meaning.